The rain was falling harder than he had ever seen in Jakarta. Every drop smashed against the roof like the world was punishing itself. He was inside, warm, the smell of coffee and home filling the air, when Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam him. On my porch. Budi. My Budi. Kneeling in mud, soaked, looking like a man who had lost everything, including the pride he once wore like armor. 10 years ago, he had looked at me like this, not with fear or desperation, but with cold calculation. My belly was swollen with our unborn child. I remember his words clearly, a child is a burden. You are an anchor. I chose the millions, and I chose her. And with that, he walked out, leaving my world shattered. But tonight, the storm had brought him back. Not for forgiveness, not for love, but for something buried, something only I knew. Before we go any further, if you want to uncover every twist, every secret of this story, make sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens next. My name is Maya. 10 years ago, I was a young woman with nothing but hope and a heart full of love. Now, people see my company, my cars, my success. But they don't see the nights I cried on a cold floor, wondering how I would feed my newborn son, how I would survive without the man I loved most. Budi was supposed to be that man. But ambition had poisoned him. When he met Sandra, a woman was a father owned half the city, Budi did they just leave me. He tried to erase us from existence. I remember the day clearly. He held our wedding ring in his hand, his fingers trembling, not with sorrow, but with disdain. Budi, flashback, cold facts, Maya, don't be dramatic. Life is about levels. You are level 1. Sandra is the final boss. I'm tired of being poor with you. He left with a sweet chasse, his log echoing in the empty apartment like a warning. I was alone, pregnant, and heartbroken. But I survived. Every tear I tried became a brick in the foundation of the life I would build for my son. Meanwhile, Budi entered what he thought was paradise. Sandra's wealth dazzled him. Her charm, her Menschenmachen, her family, they promised everything. But behind the walls, the truth was darker than anything he could imagine. Her riches were built on lies, debts, and scams that eventually would swallow him whole. As he learned the hard way, luxury can be a golden jage. He became a servant to his own greed, humiliated, trapped by the very dreams he chased. And yet, despite all the rumors he heard about his downfall, he never celebrated. He was too busy building a future where my son would never depend on someone like him. And now, 10 years later, here he was, Budi, soaked in rain, holding something in his hands, something that could change everything, or destroy whatever remained of the man he used to be. While Budi was outside, shivering and broken, my life had been wagged quietly, brick by brick, tear by tear. I worked 3 jobs, often collapsing into bed at midnight, but every small victory felt like a shot in the face of the man who once abandoned me. By day, I managed my small trading business. By night, I studied financial management, market trends, and ways to make my money grow. Every client I signed, every contract I closed, every investment I made was a step further from the helplessness I once knew. Visuals in my mind flashed like memories. Me counting joints to buy milk, the empty fridge, the sleepless nights with my son trying for warmth. Those moments weren't just painful, they were fuel. Meanwhile, Budi's golden life with Sandra was trembling behind the glitter. What he thought was a paradise turned into a prison. Sandra, who had seemed so gracious and wealthy, was a master manipulator. Her father's empire was built on loans, fake accounts, and bribes. When Budi realized this, it was already too late. He had signed documents, guaranteed loans, and taken responsibility for her mistakes without realizing it. The press began asking questions. Police investigations crept closer. Budi went from the man with a shiny tie and smooth confidence to a man hiding in fear, constantly apologizing, constantly failing. Budi, flashback, whispering to himself, how did he not see it? Everything he took he owned, it's not mine. Everything he built, he helped destroy myself. All the while, he was raising. My business expanded, and my son, now a bright, clever boy, never had to ask Ione for anything. Our small apartment transformed into a home filled with laughter, stability, and love. He didn't just survive. He thrived. And yet, even with all my success, part of me could not ignore the shadow of Budi's return. Seeing him kneeling in the rain, rugged and broken, he felt a strange mix of anger, pity, and curiosity. What had provoked him here? Why, after 10 years, in the worst state of his life, did he come to my porch? He opened the door slightly, letting the warm light spill onto him. The mud on his clothes glistened under the porch light. His eyes, once filled with arrogance, were hollow and haunted. He clutched an envelope tightly, as though it was a lifeline. Budi, felt trembling, Maya. I need your help. I didn't answer immediately. I studied the man who had left me, abandoned me, and caused 10 years of struggle. But he also knew that the envelope he held might be the reason for his desperation. Something told me, this was not just about money. This was bigger. The storm continued to rage, thunder shaking the roof. My son peeked from behind the curtains, curious yet curious. He had heard stories of Budi, the man who used to be his father figure, the man who had vanished from our lives. Budi shifted uncomfortably, trying to meet my gaze. I thought he could fix it. I thought he could undo the damage. But he can't do it alone. Please, Maya. I kept my thoughts steady. Why should I help you, Budi? After everything you did? After everything you left me to suffer? He swallowed hard. I have nowhere else to go. I made a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. Sandra, she told everything. And now, I'm at the age. I can't go back to her. They want to throw me in prison. But this, he lifted the envelope slightly. This is all I have left. And I think it belongs to you. I stared at him, the silence stretching, the rain beating down harder. This wasn't just a man asking for shelter from the storm. This was a man fighting the collapse of everything he thought he owned, finally confronting the consequences of his choices. I didn't move. I didn't speak. The tension between us was unbearable. The porch, once just a simple entrance to my home, had transformed into the stage where 10 years of betrayal, ambition, and heartbreak would collide. And that envelope, it was the key to a secret Budi had carried all these years. A secret that could change everything for both of us. Budi shifted his weight, shivering, the rain soaking through his thin shirt. The envelope trembled in his hands, and he could see the fear in his eyes. The man who once walked out of my life with arrogance and entitlement no looked smaller than a child. He finally spoke, my face calm but cutting. Show me. What's in the envelope? He hesitated, glancing down at the wet ground, as if summoning the courage to betray what little pride he had left. Slowly, he handed it over. He took it, careful not to touch his hands. The envelope was worn, stained, but heavy with significance. Budi, striking, it's everything everything Sandra stole from you. From your father's estate. The land, the deeds. She signed them in my name, 10 years ago. I was too blind, too greedy. I didn't see it. And now, they want me in prison for her crimes. I opened the envelope slowly, my heart pounding. One by one, the documents revealed the truth. The deeds to my father's old land, the papers proving Budi had been manipulated into selling it, the evidence that Sandra had built her fortune by using my family's property as collateral. Every signature was forget, every transaction a trap. Budi swallowed hard. It hoped he could keep it for her, might make her happy, my profit was worth something. But she used me. And no, I'm nothing. The rain intensified, thunder tracking across the sky. My son had quietly joined me at the doorway, watching the scene unfold with wide, questioning eyes. He had never known the full story, but he felt the tension in the air, the weight of betrayal lingering like smoke. He looked at Budi, the man who had left me pregnant, broken, and terrified. The man who had only thrown away love for money. The man who now stood before me, broken, begging not for love, not for forgiveness, but for redemption. Maya, felt steady, me assured, why should I believe you, Budi? After everything you did? After 10 years of suffering, humiliation, and lies. Budi's shoulders slumped. His voice barely audible over the storm. Because this is the only truth I can offer. If I spent the last year, every day, trying to fix what I destroyed. I stole the documents back page by page. I risked everything, my freedom, my life, to bring this back to you. The envelope felt heavier in my hands now, not just with paper, but with the weight of history, of betrayal, of consequence. Every page screamed the truth. The man who had destroyed my life had also risked everything to make right what he had wronged. I looked at him, really looked at him. Budi wasn't arrogant anymore. He wasn't the man who had laughed at my tears, who had chosen millions over love, who had walked out of my life without a backward glance. He was a shadow of that man. Hollow, frightened, remorseful, but real. Budi, facts almost a whisper, I don't ask for your forgiveness, Maya. I just wanted to give you back what is yours. Before they take me for good. The storm raged on outside, but inside, the tension was suffocating. The envelope represented the past, the scheduled mistakes, betrayals, and lies. And now, finally, it was here. Between us. It talked of my son, of the life we had built, of the years of struggle that had transformed me from a scared young woman into someone unstoppable. It talked of letting Budi back into our lives, of trusting him, made my chest tighten. And yet, the man before me, so awkward, trembling, holding the evidence of his guilt and his effort to make amends, was not the same man who had abandoned me. The rain had washed away more than just his pride. It had stripped him down to the bare truth. Budi was finally confronting the consequences of his choices. I looked at him, silently stretching. I could feel every heartbeat in the porch, every drop of rain pounding like a drum on the roof, every memory of the pain he had chosen. Finally, I spoke. Budi, you brought it back. You risked everything to bring it back. That doesn't erase 10 years of betrayal. But it changes the stakes. He nodded, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the rain. I don't ask for more than a chance to set things right. And in that moment, the mystery of his return became clear. Budi wasn't asking for money, for comfort, or for love. He came because the truth had finally caught up with him. And because only he could close the circle. The rain began to ease, leaving only a steady drizzle. The porch, on just a threshold between my home and the world, had become me a courtroom of memory and consequence. I held the envelope tightly, feeling its weight, feeling the years of betrayal press against my chest. Budi's eyes were hollow, desperate, yet filled with a fragile hope. Maya, please. I don't want to lose everything. I made mistakes, but I can't go to prison. I can't end like this. I stood at him, remembering every insult, every moment of abandonment, every sleepless night with a newborn in my arms while he chased another woman and another dream. And yet, there was a truth in his thoughts, a sincerity that hadn't existed 10 years ago. Maya, facts steady, but controlled. Budi, you need to understand something. These envelopes, these documents, they don't erase the past. They don't erase the pain you caused. You can't fix 10 years of my life with a page of paper. He flinched, the rain dripping from his hair onto his worn jacket. I know. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking, just let me do the right thing now. Let me return what was stolen. Let me face the consequences for what I've done, without hiding behind her lie. I took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define everything. The man who once laughed at my suffering now stood before me, stripped of pride, stripped of the jade, stripped of everything that had made him cruel. And yet, he still carried responsibility. He had made a mess, now he wanted to clean it. I called my son over, watching him as he approached cautiously. This man, I sighed softly, is the man who left us. But he also brought back something that belongs to us. He wants to make it right. And we will let the law decide the rest. Budi's shoulders sagged, tears mixing with the rain on his face. Damn you, Maya. That's all I ask. That's all I could ever hope for. I picked up my phone and yelled to local police. Yes, I said when he answered. There is a trespasser on my porch. He has something he wants to hand over. I need you to come quickly. Budi's eyes widened, panic tripping back. No, you don't have to do that. I'm not here to hurt Ayone. I let him speak, but my hand did falter. Karma wasn't about vengeance. It was about consequences. The man who had abandoned me, who had destroyed our lives, had finally returned not to manipulate or beg, but to face what he had chosen. That was his retconning. Within minutes, red and blue lights flickered across the porch, their reflection into wet wood painting the sky like a cinematic climax. Budi did not resist. He handed over the envelope to the officers, each page trembling in his grasp. The weight of his mistakes finally bore down fully. As the police led him away, Budi turned toward me, his broken smile lingering in the drizzle. Maya, thank you for letting me through. I did the answer. I watched him disappear into the night, rain soaking his form, finally free from Sandra's manipulation, finally confronting the truth he had long avoided, but still paying the price for every choice he had made. The porch was empty. The storm had passed. I looked down at the envelope in my hands. My father's land, my heritage, returned not through revenge, but through courage, truth, and accountability. I realized something in that silence. The greatest triumph isn't watching Simeone suffer. It's becoming so strong, so successful, that her return doesn't shake you. Her presence doesn't matter. You are untouchable because you built your life, your happiness, and your family on resilience, not dependence on others. I turned to my son, smiling softly. We're safe now, I sighed. And for the first time in 10 years, the weight on my chest lifted, not because Budi had returned, but because we had survived. Because we had built something unbreakable. And somewhere in the distance, Budi's broken smile lingered in my mind, a reminder that people can fall, they can suffer, but true consequences are met with justice, not vengeance. The porch was quiet now. Only the soft patter of the drizzle remained, echoing into space where 10 years of betrayal, pain, and struggle had collided. I held the envelope in my hands one last time, knowing its contents had restored not just land or documents, but a sense of closure, a reminder that truth, no matter how long buried, always comes to light. I looked at my son, Eyes were wide with understanding even though he was too young to grasp the full depth of what had happened. Remember this, my boy, he sighed softly, people will hurt you. People will leave. But your strength, your determination, your heart, that is yours. No one can ever take that away. He turned toward the empty street, where Budi had disappeared into the night under the flashing lights of the police car. A small, broken smile lingered in my mind, not one of joy, but of acknowledgement. He had faced the consequences of his actions. He had tried to make things right. And that was enough for the record of his story, though it could never undo the pain he caused. Sometimes, the hardest decisions aren't about revenge or justice. They're about knowing your own worth and refusing to let anyone else control your happiness. That night, I realized, the ultimate power isn't wealth, fame, or even success. It's freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from the past, and freedom from the people who only tried to define you. And as I closed the door, listening to the last drops of rain hitting the roof, I knew one thing with certainty. Life has a way of balancing itself. Karma doesn't need your hand. It works quietly, invisibly, and at the exact moment when the lesson is unavoidable. So I ask you, what would you have done if Budi had appeared on your porch after 10 years of pain? Would you have let him in, offering a chance at redemption? Or would you have walked away, protecting what's yours, letting the consequences unfold on their own? Think about it carefully. Because sometimes, the hardest choice is the one that proves the most about who you really are. If you want more stories like this, stories of betrayal, of redemption, of hidden truths and unexpected consequences, stories that make you question morality, life, and human nature, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Your support keeps these real stories alive, and ensures you do never miss a moment of suspense, drama, and life lessons hidden in plain sight. And remember, sometimes the people who hurt you the most are the ones who teach you the greatest lessons. Karma doesn't forget. Neither should you. The rain had almost stopped, leaving the air heavy with wet earth and the scent of dust. I stepped onto the porch, careful not to disturb the damp wood beneath my feet. The envelope felt heavier than ever in my hands, not just because of the papers inside, but because of everything it represented. Betrayal, struggle, resilience, and the long road we had traveled to reach this point. My son took gently at my sleeve. Mama, who was he? His face was small, hesitant, but full of curiosity. I crouched down to meet his eyes, keeping my face soft but firm. That man, my love, is someone who made very bad choices. Choices that hurt people he loved. But he is also a reminder that no matter what happens, we must never let someone else's mistakes define our lives. I let my eyes drift to the empty street. Budi had disappeared, swallowed by the shadows and the flashing lights of the police car. He had given back what he could, yet the consequences he could not escape. Somewhere inside me, a small part of the past stirred, but it wasn't a pain anymore. It was clarity. Maya, future, reflective, 10 years ago, I could not have imagined this moment. I could not have imagined standing here, watching the man who destroyed my life, watching the storm pass, knowing that I had survived, and more than survived, I had built something unshakable. I set the envelope on the table, letting it dry in the dim porch light. Each paper a symbol, each signature a testament to the truth. And I realized that life often gives us lessons in the most unexpected forms. Sometimes the lesson isn't about victory over others, but about mastery over yourself. The storm clouds were breaking, and faint streaks of moonlight cut through the darkness. I could almost see the city beyond, glittering and alive, indifferent to our human struggles. And yet, in that quiet moment, the world felt smaller, contained. The porch, so arched and battered, had become to stage for retconning, redemption, and reflection. I remembered all the nights I had tried alone, wondering how I could ever build a life without Budi, without love, without support. And here I was, stronger, wiser, free from the chains of resentment that could have destroyed me. Budi had once believed that money, status, and ambition were the ultimate rewards. But his failure had shown him, too late, that nothing external could replace accountability, integrity, or conscience. And I had shown myself that resilience, hard work, and love for my son could triumph over every injustice. My thoughts were interrupted by a soft noise behind me. The door creaked slightly. I turned, half expecting Budi to have returned, but it was just the wind, whispering through the curtains, stirring memories of what had been lost and what had been reclaimed. I sat down, breathing slowly, letting the moment sink in. The storm was over, but the lessons remained. Pain had sharpened me, betrayal had strengthened me, and the charges of others had taught me the value of my own power. And yet, there was one thing I still didn't know. One secret left in the shadows. The envelope contained my father's land, yes. But what else had Budi truly risked to return it? Had he donated his purely out of guilt? Or was there a deeper motive hidden behind the desperation in his eyes? I could not answer that question yet. Not tonight. The story wasn't over, not really. Because in every ending, there is a shadow of doubt, a flicker of suspense, a question that keeps the heart racing. I looked at my son, sleeping now in the corner of the living room, and whispered softly, "We survived, my love, but life has a way of testing us again. And when it does, we will be ready." Outside, the last raindrops fell, hitting the porch like a quiet drumbeat, a reminder that storms pass, but the echoes linger. Budi walked alone down the narrow street, the city lights reflecting off the puddles at his feet. Each step felt heavier than the last, his mind racing with memories he could no longer escape. 10 years. 10 years of chances he thought were clever, of chasing wealth while abandoning love, of ignoring the consequences until they crushed him. Budi, foot over, trembling, I thought money could fix everything. I thought power could make me untouchable. I thought Sandra's world would be mine, and that my mistakes, my betrayal, would never matter. How wrong I was. How painfully wrong. He stopped under a flickering street lamp, rain still dripping from his hair. He looked at his hands, worn and trembling, remembering the day he had thrown the wedding ring into trash, looking as if erasing Someone's life could be that simple. Flashback, Budi's face, smooth and cold. Maya, life is about levels. Sandra is the final boss. You are level 1. I chose her, and I chose the millions. The memory twisted in his chest, sharp and bitter. Back then, leaving Maya had felt like liberation. Now, standing alone in the shadows, he realized it had been the start of a prison he couldn't escape. Meanwhile, inside Maya's home, I poured a cup of tea, letting the steam warm my hands. My son slept peacefully, unaware of the storm that had passed, unaware of the man who had once controlled our lives now fighting the consequences of his choices. I sat in silence, thinking about everything that had happened, everything Budi had risked just to return the documents, and everything I had rebuilt from nothing. Maya, foot over, people think revenge is satisfying. But true power, true justice, is when someone who hurt you most shows up, and you no longer need to fear, to hate, or to beg. The storm passes, the pain lingers only as a lesson, and you stand stronger than ever. Budi continued walking, his path illuminated by the soft glow of street lights. Every corner reminded him of moments he had ignored, every shadow echoed the hurt he had chosen. He had come to Maya's porch seeking redemption, yet he realized redemption was not a gift she could give. It was something earned, and whether she forgave him or not, he had to face the consequences. Budi, voiceover, almost a whisper, I gave her the papers. I gave back what I stole, but forgiveness, that's not mine to claim. The law will decide the rest, and I will face it. It's all I can do now. A memory of Sandra flashed before his eyes. Her smile, her demands, the way she had controlled him for years. He realized the golden life he had chased was a mirage. Every moment he had believed he was winning, he had been losing. Back on the porch, he finally placed the envelope into a drawer, closing it with a quiet sense of finality. The documents had returned to their rightful place. The storm outside had passed. But the emotional storm, the tension, the betrayal, the lessons learned, would linger for a lifetime. Maya, voiceover, life is unpredictable. People live. People betray. But when you survive, when you rebuild, when you rise above the past, you discover the one truth no one can take from you. Your own strength. Your own heart. The night was calm now, almost eerily so. Somewhere in the distance, Budi's footsteps faded into the city. I knew that his story was not yet finished. He would face the law. He would face justice. And he would face the ghosts of the choices he had made. And yet, as he stood on the porch, watching the first hints of dawn streak the sky with pale light, he felt a strange sense of peace. The past had been confronted, the truth restored, and the future, my future, was finally ours to shape, free from fear and free from the chains of betrayal. The porch was quiet. The envelope was safe. And I realized one last thing. Sometimes the most powerful moments in life aren't loud or dramatic. They are silent, internal, and transformative. A storm can pass, but the lesson it leaves behind, that stays forever. The first rays of sunlight cut through the dissipating clouds, casting a golden glow over the wet streets of Jakarta. Budi sat quietly in the back of the police car, his head bowed, rain-soaked clothes sticking to him, trembling, not with fear of punishment, but with the weight of realizing how far his choices had taken him from the man he used to be. At my porch, I watched him leave, my heart steady, my mind clear. The envelope with my father's land was safe in my drawer, the proof of Sandra's deception finally resting in the right hands. Every forged signature, every illegal transaction had been reversed. Justice had been served, not through vengeance, but through truth. The police officer gave me a reassuring nod. Everything has been documented, ma'am. We do handle the rest. I nodded, feeling an unusual sense of calm. Budi's fate was no longer my responsibility, yet the knowledge of what had happened gave me closure. He had faced the consequences, and I had reclaimed what was mine. The past 10 years, the heartbreak, the struggle, the betrayal, were finally reconciled. Budi, voiceover, reflectively as he sits in the police car, he spent a decade chasing wealth, power, and validation, thinking it would make me complete. But it destroyed everything I truly valued. Maya and my son, the lives I abandoned, they were priceless, and I threw them away. I can never undo the pain I caused. All I can do is accept the consequences, learn from my mistakes, and carry this lesson for the rest of my life. I turned back to my home. My son was awake now, sitting at the breakfast table, smiling at me. The storm outside was gone. The tension, the fear, the uncertainty, all of it had passed. For the first time in 10 years, the horizon felt free and open. I sat down next to him, holding his small hand in mine. We are safe now, I whispered. Everything that was stolen has been returned. And everything we lost, we rebuilt stronger than ever. He looked up at me, curious but content. Mama, will he ever come back? I smiled softly, squeezing his hand. No, my love. Some people come into our lives to teach us lessons. Some live forever. Budi came back to return what he stole, and to face his consequences. But our life, our family, that's ours alone. The truth was clear. Budi had been manipulated by Sandra. He had lost everything chasing a life he didn't understand. He had tried to return what was stolen, but redemption didn't erase his crimes. And he had survived, rebuilt, and thrived. Every tear, every sleepless night, every struggle had led to his moment of clarity and victory. He looked out the window at the city waking up, the streets drying, the sun rising. Jakarta was moving forward, indifferent to human drama, just as life always does. But he had learned something essential. Strength, resilience, and justice do not come from wishing ill on others. They come from building your own life, defending what is right, and letting karma work its course. And with that, everything was resolved. The envelope, the land, Budi, Sandra's deception, every detail was accounted for. No lost threads remained. The story of betrayal, ambition, downfall, and redemption had reached its rightful conclusion. Ito adib bread, smiling quietly. We survived. We thrived. And now, we are finally free. The camera would pull back, showing the sun rising over Jakarta, the storm long gone, the porch empty except for the evidence of justice restored. Life moved forward, and so did we. This was the story of 10 years of pain, 10 years of growth, and the ultimate lesson. Betrayal can break you, but resilience, truth, and courage will always rebuild you stronger than ever. The screen fades to black.